Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, YouTube. Today we are again reading from the Bible. I am using the Scriptures translation. Please read from whatever Bible that you have. Follow along. Don't take my word for it. So get your coffee, get your Bible, and let's read. Today we are starting in Numbers chapter 19. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, This is a law of the Torah which Yahweh has commanded, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they bring you a red heifer, a perfect one, in which there is no blemish, and on which a yoke has never come. And you shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and he shall bring it outside the camp, and shall slay it before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and sprinkle some of its blood 7 times toward the front of the tent of appointment. And the heifer shall be burned before his eyes. He burns its hide, and its flesh, and its blood, and its dung. And the priest shall take cedar wood, and hyssop, and scarlet, and throw them into the midst of the fire, burning the heifer. The priest shall then wash his garments, and shall bathe his body in water, and afterward come into the camp. But the priest is unclean until evening. And he who is burning it washes his garments in water, and shall bathe his body in water, and is unclean until evening. And a clean man shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and shall place them outside the camp in a clean place. And they shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel, for the water for uncleanliness. It is for cleansing from sin. And he who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his garments, and is unclean until evening. And it shall be a law forever to the children of Israel, and to the sojourner who sojourns in their midst. He who touches the dead of any human being is unclean for 7 days. He is to cleanse himself with the water on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he is clean. But if he does not cleanse himself on the 3rd day, then on the 7th day he is not clean. Anyone who touches the dead of a human being and does not cleanse himself defiles the dwelling place of Yahweh. And that being shall be cut off from Israel. He is unclean, for the water for uncleanliness was not sprinkled on him. His uncleanliness is still upon him. This is the Torah for when a man dies in a tent. All who come into the tent and all who are in the tent are unclean for 7 days. And every open vessel which has no cover fastened on it is unclean. Anyone in the open field who touches someone slain by a sword, or who has died, or a bone of a man, or a burial site is unclean for 7 days. And for the unclean being they shall take some of the ashes of the heifer burnt for cleansing from sin, and running water shall be put on them in a vessel. And a clean man shall take hyssop, and dip it in water, and shall sprinkle it on the tent, and on all the vessels, and on the beings who were there, or on the one who touches a bone, or the slain, or the dead, or a burial site. And the clean one shall sprinkle the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall cleanse himself, and shall wash his garments, and bathe in water, and shall be clean in the evening. But the man who is unclean and does not cleanse himself, that being shall be cut off from among the assembly, because he has defiled the set-apart place of Yahweh. Water for uncleanness has not been sprinkled on him, he is unclean. And it shall be a law for them forever. And the one who sprinkles the water for uncleanness washes his garments, and the one who touches the water for uncleanness is unclean until evening. And whatever the unclean being touches is unclean, and the being who touches it is unclean until evening. So, touching a dead body makes you unclean, and you have to be clean, and everything around you have to be clean. It's interesting that the vessels with a lid are fine, but vessels without a lid, well, they can be contaminated. If you think back then, there was a lot of disease and stuff, and they didn't know how to prevent that or treat it, and a lot of people died from diseases and infections, and those little germs, they can get around, so kind of makes sense for the time period especially. Chapter 20. And the children of Israel, all the congregation, came into the wilderness of Sin in the first new moon, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled against Moshe and against Aaron. And the people contended with Moshe and spoke, saying, If only we had died when our brothers died before Yahweh. Why have you brought up the assembly of Yahweh into the wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? And why have you brought us up out of Mitzrayim to bring us to this evil place, not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink? Then Moshe and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of appointment, and they fell on their faces, and the esteem of Yahweh appeared to them. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron. And you shall speak to the rod before their eyes, and it shall give its water. And you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their livestock. And Moshe took the rock from before Yahweh, as he commanded him. And Moshe and Aaron assembled the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Then Moshe lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. And much water came out, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, Because you did not believe me, to set me apart in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you do not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. These were the waters of Meribah, because the children of Israel contended with Yahweh, and he was set apart among them. And Moshe sent messengers from Kadesh to the sovereign of Edom. This is what your brother Israel said. You know all the hardship that has befallen us, that our fathers went down to Mitzrayim and dwelt in Mitzrayim a long time. And the Mitzrites did evil to us and our fathers. And we cried out to Yahweh, and he heard our voice, and sent the messenger, and brought us up out of Mitzrayim. And see, we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your border. Please let us pass over through your land. We shall not pass over through fields or vineyards, nor drink water from the wells. We shall go along the sovereign's highway. We shall not turn aside, right or left, until we have passed over your border. But Edom said to him, You do not pass over through me, lest I come out against you with the sword. And the children of Israel said to him, We shall go by the highway, and if I or my livestock drink any of your water, then I shall pay for it. Let me only pass over on foot, without a word. But he said, You do not pass over. And Edom came out against them with many men and with a strong hand. So when Edom refused to let Israel pass over through his border, Israel turned away from him. And the children of Israel, all the company, departed from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron in Mount Hor, near the border of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron is to be gathered to his people, for he is not to enter the land which I have given to the children of Israel, because you rebelled against my mouth at the water of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son, for Aaron is to be gathered to his people, and die there. And Moshe did as Yahweh commanded, and they went up to Mount Hor before the eyes of all the congregation. And Moshe stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on top of the mountain. And Moshe and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. So a couple things there. First, Moses is told to speak to the rock, and instead he whacks it with a stick and says, We are bringing you water. Well, it's not really Moses doing it, is it? So Moses is not going to get to go to the promised land. And then the other big thing that happens is Aaron passes away, and he's taken up to the mountains, stripped of his priestly garments, and they're given to his son, so passing down to the next generation. Chapter 21. And the sovereign of Arad, the Canaanite who dwelt in the south, heard that Israel was coming on the way to Atharim, and he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Then Israel made a vow to Yahweh and said, If you deliver this people into my hand indeed, then I shall put their cities under the ban. And Yahweh listened to the voice of Israel and gave up the Canaanites, and they put them in their cities under the ban. So the name of that place was called Hormah. And they departed from Mount Hor by the way of the Sea of Reeds to go around the land of Edom. But the being of the people grew impatient because of the way. And the people spoke against Elohim and against Moshe. Why have you brought us up out of Mitzrayim to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and our being loathes this light bread. And Yahweh sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people. And many of the people of Israel died. Then the people came to Moshe and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against Yahweh and against you. Pray to Yahweh to take away the serpents from us. So Moshe prayed on behalf of the people. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and it shall be that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, shall live. So Moshe made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole. And it came to be, if a serpent had bit anyone, when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived. And the children of Israel set out and camped at Oboth. And they departed from Oboth and camped at Ai Ha-Abarim in the wilderness, which is east of Moab, towards sunrise. From there they set out and camped at the Wadi Zered. From there they set out and camped on the other side of the Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the border of the Amorites, for Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the battles of Yahweh, Waheb in Saphah, the Wadi Arnon, and the slope of the wadi that turns aside to the dwelling of Ar, and lies on the border of Moab. And from there on the Be'er, which is the well where Yahweh said to Moshe, Gather the people and let me give them water. Israel then sang this song, Spring up, O well, sing to it, a well that leaders sank, with which the nobles of the people dug with their staves by the word of the inscriber. Then from the wilderness on to Matana, from Matana to Nahaliel, from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth in the valley that is in the country of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looks down on the wasteland. And Israel sent messengers to Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, saying, Let me pass through your land. We shall not turn off into fields or vineyards. We shall not drink water from the wells, but go by the sovereign's highway until we have passed over your border. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his border. So Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel in the wilderness. And he came to Yahatz and fought against Israel. And Israel struck him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Yabok, as far as the children of Ammon, for the border of the children of Ammon was strong. And Israel took all the cities, and Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the sovereign of the Amorites, who had fought against the former sovereign of Moab, and had taken all his land from his hand as far as the Arnon. That is why those who speak in the proverb say, Come to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and established. For fire went out from Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the masters of the heights of Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab, you have perished, O people of Chemosh. He has given his sons and fugitives and his daughters into captivity to Sihon, the sovereign of the Amorites. Then we shot them. Heshbon has perished as far as Dibon, and we laid waste as far as Nophah, which reaches to Medeba. So Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and Moshe sent to spy out Yazer, and they took its villages and drove out the Amorites who were there, and turned and went up by way to Bashan, and Og, sovereign of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, with all his people and his land, and you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon. And they struck him and his sons and all his people, until no remnant was left to him, and they took possession of his land. So the Israelites keep asking the local sovereigns, kings, rulers, whatever, if they can pass through their land. It was like, just let us pass through. We won't drink any water. We won't trample any fields. We won't go through any vineyards. Just let us pass on the road. And they say no. And the people who decide to fight against them lose. Well, that is the end of the reading for today. Thank you for coming along with me. I hope you are reading on your own. Don't take my word for it. And I hope you join us again next Saturday. May the Father bless you. Shalom.